Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Big Moves, Bigger Conversations. I have dual screens today because I have a really special guest, Tinu, who I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an intro for her and what we're going to talk about really candidly today. And then I'm going to give her an opportunity to do her own opening. But essentially, Tanu and I met, we previously worked together. You guys know I'm on my unemployment journey. But me and Tanu worked together, what, 3+ years? And I met Tanu by way of another young lady who I adored. And when she said, "Oh no," like she was leaving the firm, and she said, "Oh, I wanted you to meet this other girl." Then my response to her was, "I don't really like new girls." And she said, "Well, just do the introduction. This is like one of my really good friends." And so Tinu and I hung out. We've actually traveled together through work and had a really good time. And I'm so happy and thankful that she's agreed to be a special guest on today's podcast. We are both single. She can confirm or deny that later because.
Yeah, if we're talking about marriage, yeah, I'm single.
And just out here trying to do it. And so today's episode is all about us navigating the real estate industry and some of the challenges we come across, but more importantly, how we're going to get our coin. And that when you see both, these Black beautiful women, we are not the ones to play with. So we're going to walk you guys through really in detail as we get started and where we had some hiccups, where we had some wins, and just have a conversation. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Tanu, to give really just, brag a little bit about your resume. Over to you.
Thank you, Sasha, for that lovely intro. This is the nicest I think she's ever talked about me in a public forum. So I'm going to be playing this back over and over and over again. Hello, everybody. My name is Tinu. I'm a CPA licensed in the state of New York. And a little bit about me is I've worked with Sasha for a few years as a consultant. My background was primarily in audit and financial reporting. And a little bit about how I got into real estate is I wanted to look through as a high earner, I wanted to look for opportunities for tax advantages. Especially as a single woman with no kids, it's like I needed the write-offs for sure. That is a little bit what started my interest in real estate. And then I bought my first home about 3 years ago in 2022, ended as an investment property. And then I've been doing it for 3 years, and I'm thinking of transitioning and selling
I
because
want to transition. And to do one of the things that I definitely don't want to gloss over is the importance of being a high earner.
yes, I am a high earner.
And very, very, very clear. But what we're saying is when you hear these flips on the internet and everyone's like, "Oh, you don't need any money, you go out and get your loans." It's money. You have to have a coin to be in real estate because things just come up. And I'm going to ask you when we get further in the interview, like some of those, oh my gosh, expensive calls and how it's not as easy as, "Oh, I'm going to use my loan to pay this loan to get this." Like it is very much
Like
so TV.
clearly,
And
yeah,
the
and
other thing I wanted to hit on is you mentioned that you purchased your property in 2022. So that was during COVID, post COVID.
yeah, like literally slightly as we were emerging out of COVID. Yeah,
Did you have any hesitations coming out of COVID to make such a big purchase?
absolutely, especially because the interest rates had just started going up, and I was just hearing like you're gonna get a crazy interest rate, gonna get a crazy. Shout out to Simon Howard. He was my loan adjuster, my loan official. He got me a really great rate. It was 4%. And even to this day, when people are like, "Do you want to refinance?" I'm like, no, no.
I do want to make sure that we're like giving the audience like full visibility. We can't assume that everyone understands what we're talking about when we talk about their interest rate. But essentially, when you purchase a home, there's interest that they're essentially financing your home, right? And so on the other end of that, it's interest, and that's what the bank earns for lending you this money. And so Tanu was highlighted where her interest rate was like 4%. Post COVID, my property, I think it was like a good 7 or 8%. I don't even look at those documents because I know for one, I ain't keeping that house that long. Number two, it was just post COVID, it was really hard to have that negotiation, which is why she highlighted how good Simon was to her. So, Tanu, just talk about that process, right? Like, when we go back to your initial purchase, what were some of the things that you were like Number one, what was you said it was an investment property, but was it, you were going to renters? Were you doing Airbnb? Walk us through that. And then in addition, walk us through how you figured out like what kind of home you were going to actually purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. So I initially went into it intending for it to be a partnership, which is a whole other story. So me and my partners, we were looking specifically in New Jersey because they had had a lot of success in Airbnb in the certain area. So we were looking for homes, and when we came across the home that I own now, it was a no-brainer just because it had so much space
Yeah.
compared to the other homes, especially at the price point. And it was beautiful. It was a brand new renovation. So we thought it could do really well. And that's what caused me to pull the trigger.
You were looking for, or you and your initial friends, you got your partners, you guys were looking for a what we call turnkey.
Turnkey
Turnkey.
ready. Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Correct. Because I'm not a rental girl. I'm not a DIY girly. I'm not Bob the Builder. I don't do any of that. So I wanted it to be as ready as it could ever be. And it was. It was really beautiful. Like it is.
How many bedrooms, bathrooms? Is it a single family? Was it a townhome?
Yeah, so it's a mother-daughter. Technically, legally, it's a one family, but it has about 7 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and plenty of other like living area rooms. So, and to have that at the price point that I got it, very
Yes.
rare, very rare. Especially because I had seen just in my real estate journey, which is probably about 2, 3 years, I had seen a lot of different homes, probably like 10 or 12, and hadn't seen one this reasonably priced for what I got. So it was no, I actually saw it in the middle of construction. So I really took a little bit of a leap of faith because they weren't even done yet. And I was just like, nah, I saw the vision of it all.
So that's perfect. Because I don't like folks to miss the details.
Correct,
And
correct, correct.
you, and this is when I go back to how important it is to have money and credit. Because initially, Tinu went in with the idea of this being her going a percentage with X number of partners. When the X number of partners didn't work out, which I will say, it doesn't always work out. You have to still be willing to pull the trigger with or without those folks. And clearly, it sounds like you were able to do that. So kudos to you. And I do want to get a little, I want to get a little petty here. And I want to ask, like, what were some of those factors that led you not to move forward with those partners?
Yeah, so it was really like the terms of our agreement. I think when we were doing the initial, what's it called when they like run your credit, they do all those things.
Girl, I don't even know the full, when they're going through the initial discovery, right? Whether or not you are actually, like, do you have the funds? Do you have the credit? Right? Are you a
Correct.
viable, are you an actual person that can purchase it? Yep, yep.
Yeah, when we were doing all that, it was just ended up being faster for me to do it as like a single person. Um, and with that being said, we initially were going to go into the property together, but when we were doing the numbers, it was like, all right, it's better to do everything under you because of my credit profile, because of my lack of, previous debt.
Yep,
They had other properties as
yep.
well. But the deal fell through when it was basically they wanted me to take on all the liability and profit share at the same time. And I was like, that's not really advantageous for me. It's just not. So I decided to just pull the trigger and buy the property on my own. And I love how you said you have to have your own financing because that's very true. And a lot of my financing actually came from life insurance. So I have had a life insurance policy since I started working because my dad is a financial advisor, so he like basically sells it. So he highly recommended it. And one of the features with a whole life policy, like the one I have, is that after a certain amount of years, they how life insurance works is you pay premiums, they invest it for you, and then it grows to the amount of the death
Yep.
benefit. But along the way, your investments can exceed the death benefit, and you could have some cash value that you can actually draw from. So by this time, I had been paying into the life insurance for like 8, 9 years. I had a significant amount of cash value that I could have drawn from. What I like the best about it is so quick to pull from your policy. It's a loan technically, but it's like the fastest loan you'll ever get because it's a
Just to be
loan.
clear, bigger moves, bigger conversations are not promoting insurance.
Correct, correct. We are not financial advisors. We are not licensed to do all that yet.
She knew and
But
sharing her
I
experience and with the caveat that this is something that she's comfortable because her family, her father is a, what's his exact title?
A financial advisor.
A
Yep. He
financial
advised.
advisor. And so Tanu actually took a, there, I think the really the crux of it is there are multiple ways to secure that additional funding. I went more of a traditional route. I went through a credit union, got a traditional loan. At the time, I had a partner as well. This was a romantic partner.
C report.
It was a romantic apartment, but partner, but he was an entrepreneur, and so it made sense again on paper for me to do it. And again, I've always heard you don't want to like when you're again. This is not advice. This was my situation, but like we always went in saying, you're going to do a house, I'm going to do a house. It just made sense that I started and did the first one. Again, a whole nother story, but I just want to make it clear that like you guys should educate yourself around how you want to finance your deal because that's essentially what it is. It is a deal. And when the person is taking on a liability, it is a lot because we like to talk about when things go well. But really, it's when things go wrong. And Tanu was very, again, with her background, she knew, like, if I'm taking on the liability and you guys are coming in and you want to share profit, like, what about when things go wrong? And I don't think folks, when they go into partnerships, they talk enough or spend enough time on the if things go wrong. And so to pivot to that point, Tanu, I really want to get into the ish that went wrong. And I really am looking for you to be candid around it because I just think, again, society, when I'm saying we, they paint just such a pretty picture of what it means to be in real estate. And this stuff that comes up is not for the weak. And
It's not for the
so
weak.
when you were doing your Airbnb situation, talk to us around some of the other folks that you brought in as far as like third party, your contractor, your property manager, and like your thought process around looping those folks in.
Yeah. So, and going into this, I really learned it's important to have a team. I think I was, since the partnership fell through, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do everything on my own, including my own financing, right? So, which is crazy. Don't ever use your own money. That's my whole thing. That's what I learned. Don't ever use your own money. That's insane. So what I did is, at the advice of my brother, who was telling me like don't use your own money, he also is an entrepreneur. He told me to create an LLC, which is what I did. Because again, if something goes wrong, I didn't want my personal finances to be under scrutiny, at risk. I'm just a girl. So I formed an LLC and then I started applying to a lot of business credit cards because I knew I was going to be buying furniture, I was going to be buying all these things. I needed to have that
Yeah.
financing. And it's to me the easier route because if you're a new business, you don't really have any income or anything to show when you're like trying to get a business loan in particular. So that's why I chose the credit card route. And a tip I learned is that if you're going to for American Express, apply to all these different cards at the same time on the same day because it's one pull, but you've done like six applications, and that's why I have like 4 or 5 Amex cards.
But I do want to go back. So when you highlighted that you were able to go out, you formed the LLC, then you went to apply for business credit. Take into consideration that there's still leverage, there's still you don't have enough history as a business. So it still is heavily reliant on your personal credit.
Correct.
That's huge. I think the other thing that's new you did differently than I did. So the house that we should also give states, right? Tanu is doing this
Mhm.
out of New York, New Jersey. Her property is in Jersey. One of my properties is in North Carolina. The other one is in Georgia. For both, I did not go under the LLC route. Fine. Fine. You understand? But I do think it's important, right? When we talk about lessons learned and best practices, if my thought process was to continue to build out, I absolutely would have done those things, but we just didn't know, right? And so leveraging your network, leveraging your community, and then the point around the credit cards and the financing, huge. The first house that we did, a lot of what the money that we spent was our own. And the reason we did it that way is because we had saved. I'm talking about somebody who had two incomes versus one, so that made it a little bit easier. And it was just, again, we weren't thinking of it as a business. We were really thinking of the home as a flip. So it was supposed to be like a short term thing. And we ended up doing it. We ended up renting it out, which my North Carolina house, 10 out of 10. What they're doing in Georgia, I just want to.
And see, that's why I didn't want to
Yeah,
rent. That's why I did Airbnb because I've heard stories of people with horrible nightmare tenants, and I don't want to call Pookie and them to kick you out and go to jail.
correct.
So said,
Airbnb.
I said, yes, Airbnb because you have to leave after your stay, and if you damage anything, Airbnb will protect you. They will either charge it back to the guests or you have a certain you're covered
Yeah,
basically under a liability protection, which I really loved if anybody tore up my house. So that's now Airbnb has its own struggles compared to
yes,
renting that it's a lot of
yes.
work. It's a lot of
It's a
work.
lot of
You have
paperwork.
it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of you're getting a lot of turnover. So you have to make those guests happy. Things pop up. You get clogs. You get, things just wear and tear, breaking down. The amount of replacement beds that I had to buy, I don't know what these people are doing on the beds. Like, I'm yeah, like it's not to be doing your acrobatics. Like, it's not meant for that. Like,
And
please.
because you're having another guest come in, you don't have a long, like, especially if it's doing well, right? Tanu, I definitely wanted to hit back on the rest of your team. So you talked about you
Yes.
had, like, go into your team.
Yeah. So at first, I hired a handyman that was recommended to me. I feel like he did swindle me a little bit because he was just like off rip 150 for me to come out each time. And when he came, he would be doing some bullish, like just would take forever to just hang up some ordinary blinds. He said, I have to come back. I have to come back. Of course, you have to come back because you getting paid 150 times. So I got rid of him. And then I just started using TaskRabbit a lot. Viable handyman. Like I would just contact them and be like, hey, I like the work that you did. So I came across one or two reliable people. So I'm like, all right, cool. If anything breaks, I got somebody.
Then you can slide them under the table and move away from task force. And
Correct.
that's what, like, I just want to put emphasis on. You will have a lot of things that come up. And so having a handyman is essential because there are going to be small things. And, like, again, not to put too much on it, but my partner was a handyman. So it made,
I love that for you. I wish. I wish because
let's be very clear, that's the past, which is why I get out of it.
but yeah, I was very blessed to come across people on
Yeah.
TaskRabbit that I still work with to this day. Shout outs to Kmar McPherson. He's amazing. He can build things and he's also a very honest person.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
overcharge ever. He was very realistic about the prices. So I was very happy with that. And then next comes the cleaners because you have to have reliable cleaners at Airbnb. Because it was a big house, these people were trying to charge me arm and a leg and blah blah. It was ridiculous.
Give us a range.
So for it's because it was a mother daughter, I split it into 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and then the rest would be like 3 bedroom, 3 bath. So for the small place, people were trying to charge me like 200, and I'm like, it's 1 bedroom, 1 bath. Like what is the reason? And then for the big place, don't even get me started. They were trying to charge me like 360 per cleaning. They were trying to charge me 500 per clean. I said, girl,
Girl,
nobody's gonna pay.
y'all trying to
No.
live off of this. Y'all trying to live off my, and that's the thing, because these folks are entrepreneur based, they are literally just trying to say, how much can I get? She look like she got money. Yeah. And look,
It's like I don't want to be. Yes, I don't want to be taxed. Like, and I'm just a girl. I'm just.
so finding reliable folks or folks that will charge you what you're actually like the service in what you're getting is hard. And so
It's
you have your handyman, you got your maid service. Who else is in this team?
So then, the first couple months, I was approaching the slow season, right? Which I didn't really realize. So I started the open the 1 bedroom, 1 bath in November. Opened the rest of the 3 bedroom, 3 bath in January. January is one of the slowest months at Airbnb. I think I made $300.
And your mortgage at this time?
Was about 4,600. So my stomach hurt. Like I was like I couldn't eat. I did lose weight. It was crazy. So I said, I need help. I need a property manager. I so okay, so my pastor is into real estate. So he told me about somebody who would rent the place from me to do Airbnb, and maybe I should try that route because that way it's a rental, but like it's like a hybrid of Airbnb. So I contacted him and I said, "Hey, are you interested in renting my place to do Airbnb?" And he said, "Not quite, but I can help you manage your Airbnb." And so that's how we got into a relationship. And this man was making it rain. Okay, in 2023, we was cashing out. We was fully booked. It was amazing until it wasn't. And I say it wasn't because I feel like he was very good at profitability, but didn't really consider the upkeep of my home. Like I would get a lot of complaints about the place not being cleanly, the yard being overgrown. Like I just didn't like how he was a property manager from a
Yeah.
distance. Wasn't really willing to, do routine checks on a property, like make sure. So that's kind of why I chose to sever that
Yeah.
relationship because although the money was moneying, I had to think of my long-term
Yeah.
investment, right? Like I want to hold on to this
Yeah.
property and
And if you have negative comments on Airbnb, that then turns folks away from wanting to rent your unit. So you have to, and that is really hard, right? When you guys think of, oh, I'll just get a property manager, these property managers from the companies to like individuals, they're not, sometimes they're not that vested. Or they have a lot going on that they're not focused on what you, so the things that you will pick up on, they're not. And when people are coming in to be at your Airbnb, they also start to nitpick. So why are you worrying about the grass? Girl, you're there for the weekend. But, when somebody's spending 4 or 500, I don't know what you listed it for, but they then feel like, no, I want a pristine experience. I want it to look like, everything's in order.
look like I'm living large in a nice place and that's the thing. So, and I agree. With property managers, oftentimes you're not the only property that they're managing and they have a lot going on. And sometimes if you have a lot going on, things fall
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
cracks. And I just didn't really like that. I just felt like if I'm paying you, like I need that duty of care. And so we just ended our relationship.
Threw some money out. We threw some numbers out around the house payment. How much was it, or what was the range that you were getting for your property managers?
Yeah, so I did some research at first and I read that it was between 10 and 35% of where the earnings was, right? So he was at the time charging me 25%, which is on the higher end, right? Again, I think I was paying him for his expertise, so I was like, "All right, let's do it." I wasn't really comfortable with the 25%. I'm not gonna hold you.
Yeah.
I was like, "That's a huge
Yeah.
stress one for me."
Yeah.
But I was like, "All right," and he made it worth his while. He made enough so that I didn't feel the one fourth, but where I felt the one fourth is the services I wasn't getting. I told him, and he didn't understand this concept. I'm paying you on the premium end, so I expect premium
Correct.
service.
Correct.
I expect you to not have things fall through the cracks. I expect you to have cleaners that are vetted. I expect you to have, the thing that I also didn't like is that he was asking me if I had people, if I had handymen,
So
if
you
I
don't
had
even
lawn.
have a network, and
Exactly.
you're
So
not
I'm like,
willing
what
to
am
do
I
the
getting?
research, and you're not like of your 25, like this is what people don't understand fundamentally when they just go into entrepreneurship. The foundation isn't always there around. All I'm asking you to do is bring me the information, because at the end of the day, I'm paying. So you're walking away with 25%. I'm not asking you, oh, you're going to pay a portion of the maid service. Just find good people and like vet those people. You should be
Yes.
giving premium service but you want the top dollar and don't want to do top work, or you're not even clear on what that looks like.
Literally. And that's what got me. And that's why I'm on my fourth property manager. I'm not gonna hold you because
No, not her. I've always been a property manager, which has been stressful. It is not
yes,
an
you're
easy job. It's really time consuming, and the folks that you're working with, like it is not like oh, I just did this. When you find good people, it's easy.
correct.
But it is hard because you're just dealing with the complaints, right? No one's calling you and saying everything is going well. They're only calling you when things are going around. Okay,
Yeah.
so we talked about property managers, contractors. Tanu, this episode I really wanted to focus on like the challenges. Why? Because we have enough Instagram, TikTok videos saying how easy this is. Tell us the story and keep it high level, right? 'Cause what I really want to hit off is on the good part of when we start our legal case. Y'all
Yeah.
don't know this, but people are more like in real estate. because things are usually like cash heavy and it's not a lot of contracts, being thrown around. You're doing this, you're doing this. And it's a lot of talking. People feel like they have the ability to get over on you. And so I really want to give the ins and outs by way of telling stories to highlight what you're actually getting into outside of the glitz and the glam. And so, T New, tell us who you fell out with first.
It starts from the very beginning. Whoever renovated that home, count your days. Count your days. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. When I tell you, when I got in, because when people start coming in and fixing things, when you start first day, basement leak. Like, not first day, but like day 3, basement leak. Not the contractor's fault because it was an older home, nobody had lived in it, so things backed up, blah blah. But I'm in the house mopping the floor by myself. Like, this is the home ownership people dream of. But anyway, so things started popping up. So you call a plumber. The plumber is like, why did they hook it up like this? This is ridiculous. Like, this is why it's leaking. The tub is installed wrong. The piping is don't make no damn sense. Blah blah. And I'm like,
How did they get away with it? Because in New York, again, we're talking about Jersey. In
right.
Jersey, it's highly regulated. You have permits for everything. And so again, you hear all of these things. Did you get an inspection done on your property?
I did. And
Tanu, I mean, if you guys haven't gathered by now, she is definitely a rule follower, right? Like, she's following the steps. LLC, contractors, building on the team. I didn't do a third of this. Even when we got our home in North Carolina and in Georgia, we never used an inspection. Why? Because the person that I was dealing with at the time, he had enough sense to be like, that's fine, that's not good, whatever, whatever. But again, you are relying on these people's expertise, and they're not always either forthcoming or they don't care because they know you're not going to be able to get she can't go
they
back
know
to the.
I can't verify. This is like they're going to take your word.
Yep.
You have to take their word for
Yep.
it. And I'm here to like comfort the inspector or whatever, but like a big problem that I don't even think would have been caught in the inspection was the smoke detectors in my home. They were not wired correctly, and I had to rewire them, and it cost probably like $5,000. And I was like, I'm suing because that's the one thing that I would expect them to have done right. Because that's a huge safety issue. That's a huge, and I wouldn't have known because the inspector, they just test if it works. They don't test if it's wired correctly. And at the time, I guess the batteries were fully charged. But after some times, my smoke detectors kept beeping, beeping, beeping because the battery would drain because it wasn't hardwired like it's supposed to. So that's causing my first litigation in small claims court. And so I called the building department because I didn't know who the contractors were who renovated the home. And so I was recommended to call the building department of New Jersey because then, like you said, they need permits for everything and they could tell you who requested the permits. I can't even do that because they're telling me my home doesn't have a certificate of conformity, which is a certificate that says that somebody like did a final inspection of your home and it's good to close. So that's why I'm taking the lawyer that I used to small claims court because we closed the deal and he got paid, but we have no certificate of conformity until
Is going like there's also a financing component of this, meaning the bank is backing this home purchase. You literally to either your lawyer or the person on the other end, your closer. I don't remember the terminology from.
the realtor or
Yes,
whatever. Yeah.
like this is their job. You're not supposed to come in and be an expert. Like no one is expecting your everyday Joe to have this information, but you are. Everybody gets a percentage. Like I don't think people realize you're paying folks to not do a job completely. So they all got a percentage, and this is when the check is cut. Like I don't think I have an appreciation risk either. The reason it's easy to walk away or for the contractors and everything is because they get paid that day.
That day. And then they're done. The way I had to beg this man for the deed, where he said, didn't you close on your home a while ago? I still need the deed. Are you dumb? Like, are you okay? See, like and that's why I'm taking him to small claims court, because if you want to act a fool, we can act up. We can act up. It was months ago, 3 years ago, small claims court. Hello, I'm taking you for the fee. I'm taking you for what the legal portion of whatever I paid for closing costs is. I'm getting my lick back.
Laughing, but it is really stressful because what you highlight is I had to, she saying I have to call the building. Who knows that you have to call the building inspector? Like this is all things that through trial and error you learn. And when you have a level of what is it, grit? How do you describe it? Is it grit? Where
Yes,
you're
the
like,
resilience.
y'all play with me, but I'm really not that girl to play with. And so I'm taking the small claims. The reason we're highlighting small claims court is because small claims court is it doesn't take a lot of paperwork to get you in the door and to properly serve someone. So it's super easy. In the tri-state area, I actually had experience with suing folks in small claims court. It is so easy, and as long as the dollar value, what is it, 10,000?
Yeah, below
As long as it's
10,000 now.
below 10,000, which she is talking about it. Sanu is suing for money to get information and to get back some of the money that she paid out. But this isn't the $50,000 claim. This isn't the 100,000. This is really to say who was really at fault and how can I get you to the front and say. And
Correct.
so, Tanu, you're very early on in your litigation.
Yeah, yeah. My lawyer said I can reveal certain things about the case, but he's advised me not to, be too forthcoming because it is still
And
pending.
that's okay. But how many cases, like let's make it plain, how many cases do you have on the docket?
Three of them. I'm coming for the property manager, I'm coming for the lawyer, and I'm coming for the contractors. I didn't even get to the property manager. The thing, the third property manager that I had, he was being shady. Okay, so he would call people. He actually had a network, and he would call people to come and repair things. But what I didn't know is that he on the side was also a bookkeeper and did the invoicing for said contractors. And then I got a tip from the contractor that, hey, sis, you might want to look at those invoices because they say things that I don't necessarily agree with, and I did the work. And I said, oh, let me put my Inspector Gadget hat on and do some investigating because I did used to be an audit, so I did follow the trail. And I asked him, I said, do you keep an independent record of the work that you do, and can you tie it back to the invoices that he does? And he said, no, unfortunately, I do not, because that's why I hired him to, take care of that for me. And I said, okay, do you have, he's like, but I do have all the payments he's made to me from the year that I've been working with you and your property. So I said, all right, send it. I said, send it. Why is this a smooth 3,000 less than all the invoices that I have? And I said, wow, okay, small claims court.
But guys, think about this. You are literally trusting that folks are going to be, it's just about honesty, right? Like, not everybody is innately honest. That's not what we're highlighting. These people have no level of professionalism. The industry thrives off of fraud.
Yes.
Like, I haven't met one person who works in any aspect of real estate that said, oh no, it's been smooth sailing. I've been in this industry for 10 years. I never came across it. Like you're more likely to deal with some aspect of someone taking advantage of you learning and letting it happen again. Or you overspend. I have, because I do want to thank you. You've been super transparent, super vulnerable. Love it. We're laughing. But when you're talking about money, it's really not funny. And we're laughing because we know we're going to get it back.
Yeah, yeah, God don't blame me.
Started the podcast, those girls.
Oh, not the one or the two.
Now we may play as if we docile. At the end of the day, this ain't gonna stop what we got.
It's how you act. It's how you act. It's how you act.
We're absolutely getting to the back. So that's why that's why we're taking it a little light. But that comes from education, right? The
Right.
ability to dive in, figure out this doesn't sound right to me. What else should I be asking for? A lot of people stop, and you have
Yeah.
to be inquisitive, even if you've never did audit. You should be able to validate what you should be able to verify what you put on paper. Because if you're telling me you don't know what you paid for it, that sounds silly.
Exactly. Because in what world, and then you want me to pay for it?
Correct. Correct.
You just want me to get. I remember one instance when I first got an inkling that something was wrong is when he sent me invoices 2 invoices for $3,000 each, no supporting documentation as to what made. And I said, is
Oh
it
yeah.
okay? Like, but I also want to highlight something, Sasha. Like, you're the big inspiration for not stopping, like being like keeping, because it's honestly your story from taking the tow person to small claims court that inspired me to do the same thing. Because you're right, it's not right. I don't have to lay back and take it. All y'all, I was gonna say all y'all going to jail, but no, all y'all are paying up, okay? And honestly, it's from your tenacity that inspires me to be like, I'm not laying down and taking it. I don't have to. I really don't. I'm not the one.
If you don't get anything else from every podcast that I ever dropped on the YouTube, which I keep telling y'all to go check out, it is
What?
you have to have. I used to always joke and say, if I don't got anything else, I got time. And
Hmm.
I will make the time because otherwise people think they can get over on you, and it's really exhausting. And the example that the story that Tanu's highlighting, I essentially got towed back when I lived in New York. A random Wednesday, I get towed. I go to the man's house. I'm like, did you tow me? He says it's a sign out front. Sir, you're just because you put a sign up doesn't mean that this is a space. Like this is your personal space. It's not a driveway. I had to go, similar to Tanu, figuring it out. I went to the Department of Transportation in New York, walking in Brooklyn, to go up there and ask them, how do I know if a driveway is actually a driveway? In New York, things are highly regulated. They said that's not a driveway. He doesn't have a permit. It's never been cut. Mind you, did I
And they
know
don't
at
do
the
that
time that
in
this
New
guy
York.
was working, had a connection in with the police department? And that's why he was able to call them and get them to tow cars illegally, anyone that parks in front of his driveway. Nasty work. Nasty work. And what did I do? I took him to small claims court. Filed paperwork. I think the paperwork was like $25 or so. We ended up going to small claims court. I sued him for the hours of missed work, my transportation and Ubers for that week. And when the judge immediately sided with me. It was done. A week later, the guy still hadn't paid, and I sent him a demand letter. The sheriff delivered this demand letter, and that man paid me. Was it big money? Was this, thousands of dollars? No. But did I get my money? And did he know not to? And did he take that sign down?
Because it matters, because it's not just about you as well. If they're doing this to you, they're doing it to other people. And if they get taken to small claims court, I bet you they're going to think twice before doing the same thing
Because
again.
he
And
was
that's also what it's like.
so confident in the relationships that he has established with the police department that they laughed at me. I even went down to the police department and said to them, like, how did you guys ticket me? He wouldn't have been able to tell me if you didn't ticket me. Why would you ticket me if that's not a real driveway? And the police, I don't even know his name, but I did write a complaint because he was so nasty. I said, like, none of this makes sense. And he said, just find something else to do. It's like, they're so dismissive, which is
That's what they
also what.
want you to do.
Right. Because no
That's
one
what they
thinks
want
that
you
you
to do.
have the goal to keep going. And again, when we talk about the foundation of this podcast, it is I want you guys to keep going. When somebody, don't wait for somebody to smack you in the face for you to feel disrespected. The first time they raise their hand, take them to court.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are getting, to the latter part of the podcast, but I wanted to close out today. Thank you, number one, for those kind words. You're in the midst of litigation. We're definitely going to do a part two because, of course, everyone wants to hear, where you land.
Yes.
And I do want to make sure that's crystal clear. None of this stuff happens in 2 weeks, right? You started. It depends on if the courts are backed up. She's speaking from a New Jersey perspective. Now, in North Carolina, they actually do move fast. I'm getting ready to take my tenant to court if he don't pay by end of day today.
That's what you need to do. And you need to follow up, because they'll let it slip through the cracks too once you file it. Like,
No one has your best interest except for you.
correct.
And you have to realize that. So I do want to make sure I ask this question because we've talked about all of the negatives and all of the things that went wrong, but the other side of that, despite the challenges, why do you still believe in real estate as a path to wealth? And perhaps what advice would you give to women entering the space specifically?
Yes, I would say real estate has been one of the more consistent industries where you will get a return.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in the process of selling my home now,
Okay.
and it's definitely appreciated even in the 3 years that I've held it. Well, I still believe in real estate as a path towards wealth. I would say from a tax standpoint as well, there were certain advantages in my tax return
Yep.
that I enjoyed despite all the
Yeah.
drama. Yeah, I definitely think that if I had advice to give, I would say it would be to start small. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy a property. There are instruments that you can buy called like real estate investment trusts, which is basically you somebody else is building or developing real estate and you're buying in. And so once they start to make a return, they pay it back. So it's kind of like stocks, but like real estate
Yeah.
shares essentially. And if I had to do it all over again, that's where I would put my money.
Because we didn't even get to highlight, even on the front end, of some of the discriminatory practices. Like, guys, we're trying to give you 45 minutes of content, but like, there's so many avenues and things that we could go down, from the financing to the contractors, which you did hit a bunch on, to even like, it's just a lot.
It's a lot, y'all. It's a lot. But honestly, tenacity, I think, would be definitely a word that I would advise anybody going to real estate. In that skin, be proactive, and just don't stop. It doesn't end until you win. That's really what the mindset has to
Yeah.
be. And then also to don't use your own
Yeah.
money. Like if you can just find outside financing, there are plenty of grants. There are plenty of which I didn't even get into. But I never really got any grants personally, but I just know that they're out
Yeah.
there. And yeah, it's really a path to wealth, honestly, and it's one of the things that if you have it in your portfolio, it's gonna do nothing but help you. So I highly recommend it. I would just go about it differently. I would either get a smaller property or I would get, you can invest in apartment buildings or you can like buy an apartment and rent that out. There's a lot of, it doesn't always have to be a home. It can be, there's so many ways to invest in real estate. So yeah, I would highly recommend it to anyone, but just make sure that you have honest people in your corner and verify, 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 verify. Next time I buy my home, I'm bringing that plumber that I told you about. I'm bringing my cousin who's in construction. Yeah.
We got another team.
Yes, a whole team backing me, okay? Because getting a second opinion even is just so worth it. And if somebody tells you no or you can't do something, check them on that and be like, why not? Like ask
One of
questions.
the many words of wisdom, I don't know who said it, but they're like, trust but verify. And you should
Correct.
follow that through every aspect of your life. Again, we tried to wrap it in about 45 minutes. Tanu, I thank you so much for your time and willingness to be on today's episode of Big Moves, Bigger Conversations. I'm wishing you the best of luck through your litigations. I know you got it. Of course, if you need anything in the background, if you need someone to testify as it relates to character, you know I'm here.
Period. I love it. And I thank you so much for having me and being an inspiration as always. Sasha's always helping the girls.
Until the next episode, talk soon.